right there in front of me. This, of course, was probably $100 million or $50 million, who knows,
We're on the
of
march.
product we just videoed. I talk a lot about the Manhattan Project. In fact, will you guys give me a print up from the encyclopedia on that? To talk about a program that in today's dollars cost over $1 trillion. It was tens of billions back at the time. And they kept it secret for 4 years with more than 100,000 people working directly on the project with pretty much full knowledge, with hundreds of thousands of others having partial knowledge. Now, the eugenics global takeover, the New World Order takeover, is conservatively about 100 times bigger than the Manhattan Project. Because within it, you have the geoengineering project that's bigger than the Manhattan Project and kept secret. You've got all these other projects, the soft kill projects, the fluoride in the water, the GMO designed to brain damage and cause infertility, the chemicals added to the plastics. And then the globalists even write books admitting they're doing it. And it comes out in ABC News, secret meeting at Einstein University with the Rockefellers and royalty on how to reduce population. And then we go read the minutes of subdirectorates that are public, and they're admitting the plan. And I've talked about it. They tried to bring my dad into this Manhattan Project when he was a junior in high school. They tested 150 of the highest test score people. He would spend a lot of his high school time that year when he was a junior and senior at University of Texas being inducted into their Plan 2 program. And he got called aside by the director of the program, 6 of them, took them into his office for coffee. This is when they were seniors. He entered it when he was a junior. And he told them. And by the way, my dad remained friends with this guy. And when I was a kid, and we'd come down to Austin to visit my grandparents, my mom's parents lived here, they sometimes would break away and, go say hi to him at his house. And that was Professor Speer, who was from Germany but was Jewish, head of the botany department. And he called my dad in with 5 other people and said, you are, from our test, the smartest people, wide spectrum in Texas. He was obsessed with breeding plants and breeding moths and all this other stuff. And he said, we'd like to induct you guys into a eugenics program to get you seated and placed in governmental positions. And it is eugenics. It's not like the Nazi eugenics. It's a larger plan across the board for the good. And my dad never became a part of it. And the reason I raised that here, before I get into all this other news, is the border being wide open is now proven to be public, that the government pays to ship the illegals in and ships into Democratic-controlled bases, large churches and other facilities, to then be given a driver's license and able to vote, and then to be put on welfare to bring the country down. And we broke it. It's been proven. It's a fact. They could keep that secret for a year. It took us a year to discover it. And it was only because the Border Patrol called us. This was going on for a year. Now it's 2 years. Completely open, completely illegal, gigantic program, shipping millions in, 40-something thousand pairs of 6X underwear. I mean, that's the folks they're shipping in from Latin America, is the total welfare heads where those countries are collapsing, not the hardworking folks we've gotten in the past. How could they keep that secret? How do they keep it secret that they've been funding ISIS and Al-Qaeda for 5 years against Syria, Libya, and Egypt? And now it's come out in Congress. They just do it. How do they keep it secret that they work with Saudi Arabia to carry out 9/11? And now it's starting to come out. So all of this is like a Manhattan Project. The whole New World Order operates that way, using our resources, our money. I was on Jenny McCarthy's syndicated radio show this morning. I'm going to get her to come on ours. And she was like, no, that makes a lot of sense. I understand it. And we were going over the soft kill documents and the plan, how they don't want you to just, they give you a shot and you die in an hour. That becomes too obvious. They give you a shot and then you die of cancer 10 years later. Everyone I know has a close friend who's 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 who's dying of cancer. I have two close friends who their best friends are dying, both women, age 30 and 36 right now. Super healthy people, yoga teachers, you name it. Cancer rates in children, depending on the cancer, but on average are up more than 10,000% since 1955. Look it up. Lung cancer in women is up 7-fold, even though smoking has declined over the last 30 years in women and men. We're being murdered. They're spraying aluminum salts and barium and everything else you can imagine added to the jet fuel. It's partially declassified. It's a giant Department of Energy program. NASA admits the Earth is now 30% darker because of it, the persistent contrails. That's another Manhattan Project. They estimate half the public by 2025 in England will have cancer. We're being murdered by a globalist, eugenics, Manhattan Project. And I'm going to say it again before I get to the news, because it's all that matters at the end of the day. And I'm going to go back into the history books and actually do some reports on this. It came out in the Nuremberg trial, the plan that the Germans had working with the UK and working with what they saw as Aryan populations to resettle, but they were going to be liberators to Africa, Latin America, Asia. They were going to have the Japanese as the super race over the Asians, and they were going to allow them to operate. They believed the Japanese were smart enough to be able to be part of the conspiracy, and the emperor was a big eugenicist. That's all well known of Japan. And they were going to take over, advertise that they were there to help, keep leaders of the group, of whatever racial group they were taking over in, up front, just like Margaret Sanger did, buying off the black leaders, and that they would then put poison in the water and in the food to slowly debilitate and dumb the public down over several generations, then phasing everyone out. And that's what we're under. We're being murdered. Do you understand that? I mean, you think we tell you 10 years ago that Planned Parenthood sells baby parts? That had come out in lawsuits then. Now it's all admitted. And so I just want to warn everybody over at these White House-run outfits who make jokes at Media Matters and make jokes at Salon and make jokes at Raw Story and make jokes over at MSNBC. Listen, it's all going to come out, and people are going to remember those of you that went along with this, and you're going to be held accountable at Nuremberg-style trials. This isn't funny. So you go ahead and try to indict the governor, try to indict the attorney general in Texas because they're investigating Planned Parenthood and because they're investigating the carbon tax and because they're investigating the open border. You go ahead and try to indict me because I know they got me getting followed around. You go ahead and pull whatever you're going to pull. We're not on the side that chops up babies and sells their organs. Got it? So you've picked your side. That's good. But those people out there that read your publications and watch your television shows that are being preyed on need to understand you're working under some very, very evil people. And you might want to think twice about what you're part of. Because they put fluoride in everybody's water. They try to force inoculations on everybody, including their servants. And it's come out that in the U.S. and in Europe and in China and Japan, the elites get clean, good, engineered, true vaccines that have side effects but really can protect you. You try to misrepresent that we're against the science of inoculation. That's not what's being said here. You put out poisonous bilge. And you're basically taking part in this whole situation when you defend it. Guys, they've got a warehouse door open over there into my studio. They don't have both doors sealed. It sounds like a freight train's wrecking in there. Can we get those shut? Thank you. Now, continuing here, ladies and gentlemen, we have a decision to make. And now the federal government is announcing they're going to track adults that are unvaccinated and start trying to basically force you to take shots and use the IRS as the enforcement mechanism, just as they're now doing in Australia. This is a global plan. And believe me, being trendy, wearing different color socks that don't match, going to a gay pride parade and supporting Caitlyn Jenner, I know you think is a force field that makes you morally super intellectual and super smart. But I'm going to try to explain to you that's all just pop diversions while the real world goes on to have us fighting with each other. And you're drinking poison water. You're being injected with deadly cancer viruses. You're being fed GMO that kills the guinea pigs that eat it. You're being fed corn that kills the pigs that eat it. And so when you get cancer at 40, or your wife or husband does, or your son or daughter does, or when you know, everybody in your family history had healthy kids, but you have 2 kids, and both of them, one of them's brain damaged, and the other one's got deformities, just understand you were hit and hit hard, and you deserve to know who killed you. You see, the 223 or 5.56 bullet was developed to not kill, statistically on average, but to wound, because they found that that would sap enemy resources, having to take care of a person that was wounded by a high-velocity round that goes 2,300 feet per second that tends to break up inside the body, because the Geneva Convention banned hollow point bullets. The Pentagon got around it by creating a fragmentation full metal jacket round that would get around the Geneva Convention. Now, why do I bring that up? Because that's what autism is. That's what neurological disorders skyrocketing are. It's not just the background radiation, threefold what it was in 1945 in the Northern Hemisphere. It's not just the chemicals and the glyphosates in the water. It's not just the plastic linings. It's not just the vaccines. It's all of it together, and they're just exacerbating it to make it as horrible as they can. So remember, you're laughing now. You won't be laughing later. So just remember when you're burying your small child who dies from cancer or who dies from having violent seizures every hour. Just remember when you take your 18-month-old in and get that 3rd round of shots and they have a convulsion in the car and then they never talk again, that I warned you and it wasn't funny. It's not funny for Jenny McCarthy. She said, I don't know what's going on, but there was 1 in 25,000 30 years ago with autism, and now it's 1 in 58, and it's set to be 1 in 10 by 2025, and then 1 in 5, and then 1 in 3, until suddenly nobody can talk, and everyone's drooling, and the average person is throwing feces up against the wall, and then no one's asking, what's going on? Why is this happening? Because there's a giant globalist program poisoning the food and water by design. Read John P. Holdren, the White House science czar's own book, written 40 years ago. 41 years ago now, in 1974, with Paul Ehrlich.